people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Earlier today, it was officially announced that Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach has been rescheduled for March 1st at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Feels like it's been a long time since the PBC played the Barclays. You will remember that some years ago, they used to stage fights there regularly. In recent years, they've moved away from the East Coast scene and started doing more shows at the Armory in Minneapolis. I've heard it said on many occasions that a part of the reason the East Coast boxing scene isn't what it used to be, particularly in the tri-state area, it's because it's more expensive to do fights there. Something to do with insurance or provisions, just something along those lines. So you don't see as many big-time boxing matches on the East Coast in New York as you used to.
This fight is garbage.
Now that's what one Twitter user said. A Twitter user that goes by the name O-Gun said, "Nobody asked for this garbage fight. Boxing has become a joke." To which veteran boxing scribe Dan Raphael said, "This fight is absolutely not garbage." Another Twitter user that goes by the name Combat Sports Insider said, "How much are they paying you to say this?" To which Dan Raphael responded, "Zero, asshole."
Testy.
Jesus Christ.
It's long been speculated that not just content creators in the YTBC, but actual journalists, actual boxing writers have been onboarded by some of these promotional outfits to keep their banner and their fighters and their events in a positive light,
even when all the evidence is to the contrary.
So when a Combat Sports Insider suggests that Dan Raphael is on the take and he's working as another arm of promotion for the PBC, that's where that sentiment comes from. That doesn't necessarily make it true, but that's why people feel that way.
Well, it's not far-fetched.
I mean, I know with an absolute certitude that there are YouTubers, there are content creators that were given financial incentives by fighters and their teams and some promotional outfits to talk about them in a positive light. It has happened. So the idea that the same thing is going on with journalists, it's not far-fetched at all. What lends credence to that notion is here you have a fight that absolutely no one was asking for, and once again Gervonta Davis is bringing up a super featherweight up to lightweight for a pay-per-view that costs about $80. $80 in this economy. $80 in this boxing landscape when you're getting better fights, much better fights, for far less. You take Turkey LL Sheik's proposed Riyadh season show in February, and all the fights that are rumored to happen on that bill, all better than this one, all more intriguing.
But why should anybody, let alone a boxing writer, get defensive when they call this fight a piece of trash?
That's what it is, an overpriced piece of garbage.
What's Dan Raphael getting so defensive for?
Remember that initially they said this fight was supposed to go down before this year is out, and they had to move it for whatever reason. So that essentially means that Gervonta Davis was free to negotiate a better fight, a bigger fight, with a bigger name. We know that in the past, Turkey LL Sheik expressed some interest to bring Gervonta to Saudi to do a big fight with him there. And he doesn't want to do that. He wants to play it safe. He wants to fight the Lamont Roaches of the world. How do you have time for Lamont Roach, who last fought on Pro Box, but you put no effort into fighting a Shakur Stevenson?
A champion at your weight, or a Teofimo Lopez.
Those guys were free, and basically, so were you. And this is what you're doing. For negotiating a fight with Lamont Roach all the way out there in March, seems you had plenty of time to deliver the paying public something better.
Instead, you deliver more of the same.
So that the boxing writers can get snippy when people criticize this fight and criticize you for having it. It absolutely is a garbage fight, an overpriced garbage fight. I saw Jamel Herring outpoint that same Lamont Roach, and it didn't cost me $75 or $80 to watch it. So why should I have to pay that now? Because it's Gervonta.
Please.
I just saw the guy you're fighting free of charge on YouTube.
Jesus Christ.
This is not a gala spectacle. This is not a big fight that there was a grassroots demand for. Time and time again, Gervonta Davis and his team ignore what the paying public wants to deliver fights like this.
And the boxing media allow him to do it.
They absolutely do, because if the boxing media, in tandem with the fight fans, in one voice said, this fight is a piece of trash.
Garbage.
It would make it that much harder for Gervonta to keep doing this. Who do you expect to buy this?
$80.
Should be the boxing writers more than anyone that criticized Gervonta. $80 for a fight like this? What are you cutting him slack for? We're getting Fury versus Usyk 2 along with a solid undercard for half of what this is gonna cost. In February, we're getting an even better show than that one.
So that when the Saudis put together these ambitious shows, all you can do is hear people complaining about how there's no atmosphere.
Oh, they don't let people drink over there. It's not the same.
Morons.
No, I don't know with an absolute certitude that Dan Raphael's one of these boxing writers receiving kickbacks from a promotional outfit to write nice articles about them, but it wouldn't surprise me.
What are you getting so defensive about this fight for? You're pretending you're excited to see this? You're pretending anybody was asking for this?
They talk about Gervonta like he's been there and back with everybody when he hasn't been there and back with anybody.
Well, what, he's earned the right to choose?
To have his pick of the litter, that's what he's been doing. That's always been the case. He's always had his pick of the litter. He's always been very careful, very cautious about who he fights. And here at 30 years old,
He shows no signs of change.
it's more of the same, and it's just like that Ogun guy said. This fight is a piece of garbage. You're lying to yourself if you say that it isn't. On super lightweight news, Eddie Hearn says Arnold Barboza versus Jack Catterall could end up being for a world title. The reigning WBO world champion is Teofimo Lopez, whose future in the super lightweight division is unclear, though most feel he's going to move up in weight.
There ain't no big money fights at 140.
Jack Catterall has spent the last couple of weeks recuperating from his hard-fought decision victory over Regis Prograis, but the leading junior welterweight is ready to get back into the mix. Catterall's fight with Prograis was the first boxing event to take place at Manchester's new Co-op Live Arena, and the 31-year-old's promoter, Eddie Hearn, told Boxing Scene that he's already planning on taking him back to the city. Catterall's opponent will be confirmed in the coming weeks. In the aftermath of the fight with Prograis, Catterall and his team were united in their belief that he deserves a world title shot next, and IBF champion Liam Paro
25-0 with 15 KOs.
was almost immediately singled out as the most likely target. The Australian has some pressing business of his own to tend to. Next week, he has a tricky-looking title defense scheduled against unbeaten American Richardson Hitchens, 18-0 with 7 KOs in Puerto Rico, of all places.
Yeah, Liam's got some options of his own.
Yeah, he could defend his title. He could defend it voluntarily against Jack Catterall, or he can shoot for a big homecoming fight against his countryman, George Kambosos, which I think would be a considerably bigger event in Australia than fighting Jack Catterall, potentially in the UK.
As the away fighter again.
You know, he's got options, so does Jack. This week, Jack Catterall was given another route towards a title as the WBO ordered him to box Arnold Barboza Jr., 31-0 with 11 KOs, in a final eliminator for the belt currently held by Teofimo Lopez, who is reportedly considering a move up to welterweight. Catterall told Boxing Scene that rather than jumping into a decision, he will wait to see what happens between Paro and Hitchens. That's next week, so he's not got a lot of time to wait, Hearn said. We're scheduling February in Manchester for Jack. I actually like the Barboza fight. Obviously, we'd rather have it for a world title. I think everybody would, but at the same time, you don't know.
What I think? If Richardson Hitchens wins the fight, he'll end up fighting Jack Catterall. But if Liam Paro wins the fight, he might go off and fight George Kambosos, who Matchroom just signed.
Eddie Hearn said at the same time, you don't know what's going to happen with Teofimo. That final eliminator could go from an interim title to a world title, but it's a good option. The key is to try to get him a world title shot, but if it all fails, Barboza for a final eliminator.
Tricky situation.
Arnold Barboza is with Golden Boy Promotions, and we all know Oscar, Golden Boy, they can't stand Eddie Hearn, they can't stand Matchroom, so negotiating a fight between these two fighters could be difficult. Theoretically, it could, and if push comes to shove and they don't reach a deal, a purse bid will ensue.
And I think this fight might mean a bit more to Matchroom than it does to Golden Boy. Is Golden Boy really going to break the bank to bring Jack Catterall to America so Arnold might have home field advantage?
I don't know. I see scenarios where either fighter might end up walking away. Jack to shoot for the IBF.
Or maybe Arnold so that he doesn't have to go to Manchester.
Earlier this week it was announced that a new rule would be implemented to where if a fighter walks away from a world title opportunity, he's dropped completely from the WBO's rank standings. And I wonder if that rule also applies to interim titles. That if any one of these guys ends up walking away, are they stricken from the record? Are they stricken from the ranks?
They might be.
We know that Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, and Sam Jones, who manages the career of Jack Catterall, they're determined to get him out there in February in Manchester.
This thing with Jack and Arnold, it is significant even if a fight between them would not yield a pleasing aesthetic. And it wouldn't, because Arnold fancies himself a mover and a jabber and a boxer, and so does Jack. You put two guys like that in the ring, you are not going to get a fan-friendly fight.
And that's just being honest. I ain't got nothing against Jack, but I am not looking forward to Caterrall versus Barboza at all. But it's on the table. It is something that could happen.
And it's a fluid situation.
So because a fight between Arnold and Jack would decide the mandatory challenger for Teofimo Lopez, he's not yet under pressure to face either of these guys. They have to fight for it to come to that.
He's got time.
Time to make his decision, time to reign as WBO champion a while longer. Earlier this week, it was announced that he had enlisted the aid of Eddie Reynoso moving forward, and that's encouraging as he makes his ascent to welterweight. If he is going to do that, he might skip out on 140, move up to 147, and reschedule a fight with Brian Norman.
Isn't that a more dangerous fight than the winner of this one?
Depends on how you look at it. Arnold Barboza and Jack Catterall fight in such a way that that's what Teofimo struggles with. Movers and jabbers and guys who are going to stay on the outside of him, whereas Brian brings the fight to you. So at least stylistically, it's a fight that plays to Teofimo's strengths. The caveat is, Brian is a big, strong kid.
You couldn't put away Steve Claggett. How are you going to put away this guy?
And hopefully Eddie Reynoso can give Teofimo the answer to that question. The crux of it for Teofimo is that there are no safe fights for him. Not at 140 and not at 147. But at least stylistically, the Norman fight is better for him.
It's a fluid situation.
For more reasons than one.
When we did our interview on Tuesday at Pat Brown's media lunch, I think when he went out, a lot of people were surprised of the 147 talk.
Yeah.
Was that something which was proposed to you, or
Yes,
was it something you guys wanted?
Yeah, we were proposed a fight at 147. I think whether it's a communication issue or whatever, I was quite surprised because obviously Ortiz was 147, but just recently moved to 54. We're happy to move to 54, but we just got to get our ducks in a row regarding the championship at 147. Can we unify in February or March, or if not, do we just let the belt go and make our move? You know, I like the Ortiz fight. I think he's a very good fighter, and I think it's a good style for Jaron. But it's a big decision, and that decision will come, like I said, in the next 24 hours. So got Feb 22nd, Ennis, Ortiz. Like Ennis wants to unify. Barrios could be an option. You've got Stanionis, Norman. We've got to make a decision. And yesterday was Thanksgiving, which is very difficult to make a decision on what is effectively their Christmas Day. But we are going to be making a lot of deals this afternoon.
This afternoon?
Yes.
I could see Jaron Ennis staying at 147 pounds because unifications there might start to open up. You will notice that Carlos Adames is set to box on a Riyadh season show. He's a PBC fighter. You will also notice that Erislandy Lara, he's set to fight Chris Eubank Jr. on a boxer show. He's also a PBC fighter.
Conor Benn called out Mario Barrios for a fight, and then you see what Eddie Hearn is saying, that a lot of deals are going to get done within the next 24 hours. That could be one of them. Mario is another PBC fighter.
The point and purpose of bringing up how many PBC fighters are boxing off platform is that Eimantas Stanionis is a PBC fighter. Eimantas Stanionis is under orders to fight Shakram Gayasov in a high-risk, low-reward fight. On the premise of that, they could work something out. They could get Shakram Gayasov to step aside, let Stanionis unify with Boots. That fight might have opened up under pressure to satisfy this mandatory.
Boots might stay at 147.
I can hear it already. The Boo Birds are going to start chirping because what they wanted him to do was go to 154, go fight Virgil.
They think that's a deeper and more dangerous division than the welterweight division, which it is.
But that doesn't make the Stanionis fight a bad fight. I never thought that was a bad fight. I think that could be a competitive fight for Boots too, because I didn't have this overinflated opinion of Boots like some others had. As far as I'm concerned, the Stanionis fight, the Norman fight, those could all be competitive fights for Boots.
Are they as good as the Virgil Ortiz fight? Are they as risky? No.
But they are meaningful in their own right. They are unification matches. They are necessary steps towards undisputed. And it's what I told you before. Undisputed is a legacy by default.
There's no way that taking out the competition, taking out the other champions, and unifying your division isn't a legacy move. It absolutely is. Whereas Virgil, good fight that it might be, I wouldn't call that a legacy fight. It's a good fight.
If Boots stays at 147 pounds, they're gonna say that he ducked Virgil. They absolutely are. And it might be hard to defend him.
But who says I'm defending him? I'm just telling you what I think he's gonna do. I think he's gonna stay at 147, and that's why.
Because the world title picture at welterweight may be starting to open up like what we're seeing at middleweight. You didn't have any luck getting Stanionis in the ring this year, but that's costed Stanionis time, not Boots. He got in 2 fights this year. Stanionis only got 1.
And it likely didn't pay much.
That guy doesn't have the luxury of time while he's under orders to satisfy a mandatory. The best thing you can do now is convince that guy to step aside while you go make money with Boots. So maybe that keeps Boots at welterweight a while longer. I ain't telling you to like it, I'm just saying it might happen.
Stanionis isn't a bad fight, though.
Not saying it is. A lot of these people urging Jaron Ennis to move to the junior middleweight division are doing so in bad faith. They're only really urging him to move up there because they figure he can get beat up there, and that's what they want to see. They want to see him get beat.
By Virgil?
Or somebody else, but that's what that really is. That's what that's all about, this push to see him abandon his title, his world title campaign, to move up to 154 and be a contender. It's counterintuitive.
But these guys aren't intuitive. The ones urging him to move up there, they're only doing so in bad faith.
Truthfully, I'm alright if he stays at 147, and I'm alright if he moves up to 154 for Virgil. I'm okay in either scenario.
It's inconsequential to me.
I have no ulterior motives or agendas to propagate. I'm just a boxing fan, and if he unifies at 147, that's alright. If he doesn't, and he moves up and he fights Virgil, that's alright too. I'm alright with either scenario. But staying at 147 is not without consequences. You skip out on Saudi money to fight Virgil, they're gonna call you a duck. Which isn't the worst thing in the world. You can't please everybody.